Hi, Mike Wright here. It's the 8th day of Christmas, and we want to talk about 8 specific forms that you should be watching out for over the next several weeks in order to complete your income tax return. Yes, we got by the fiscal cliff, and yes, for most of us, at least for those who have earned less than $400,000 as an individual or $450,000 as a married filing joint couple, things will not change very much, but we'll talk more about that later on. Today I simply want to talk about these 8 specific forms. These aren't the only forms that you will receive, and so you'll have to watch out for others, but you do want to pay special attention to these items. The first one, of course, is your W-2. And the W-2 is a form that your employer will provide for you either in your paycheck or by mail. And if you have had any previous employers during the year, other than the one that you were working for at year's end, you'll want to be watching for those forms from them as well. For the W-2, in fact, for almost any of these forms that we're going to talk about, the deadline for them to prepare the form is the end of January. They are supposed to be in the mail to you no later than February 1st. Now, I underscore the word supposed because there is no guarantee that they will come timely, and there is certainly no enforcement that can come to you individually if they aren't filed timely, or they don't come to you timely. So the W-2 will come from your current employer or from any other employer that you had during the last year. The second form you want to be watching out for is called the W-2G. And that's a form that it comes that shows gambling winnings that you have. And of all the forms that we're talking about today, this is one that you may or may not receive at the end of the year. You may have had one given to you at the time of your gaming if you had a large enough winning to be to satisfy the requirement for this. It would have been made out for you and given to you either at the time you were at the casino or the racetrack or shortly thereafter. So if you have any of those W-2Gs already in your possession, you want to be sure that you've got them in a safe place with your other tax records. But keep your eyes open in case there are others that you don't remember or you were unaware of. The next series of forms that we're going to talk about are 1098s. The third form is the 1098 that you will get from your mortgage company because it shows the amount of mortgage interest that you paid during the past year. You want to be careful with these because more and more mortgage companies are simply including them with the last mortgage statement for the year, which means you may have already received your 1098 for the year of 2012 with your January mortgage statement, which was probably sent out sometime during December. So watch for that. You might also investigate the possibility of getting that information online through your mortgage company's website so that you don't need to worry about the paper copy. You can get that information when the time comes to use it. That's the 1098 mortgage interest. There's also a form called a 1098T, which is tuition, and that would show the amount of tuition that you either paid or were billed for any eligible student during the year, whether that's your dependent or you personally. You'll want to watch out for those. The form of those has changed a little bit over the last couple of years, and so we want to watch those very carefully, but that will be complete information. As with all of the forms that we're talking about here, you do want to examine them when you receive them to make sure that what's on there makes sense to you so that you have an opportunity to question it. Part of the reason that they're required to be out so early is because from the employer standpoint or the issuer standpoint, the IRS allows until March for them to duplicate that filing from their end. So if there is something that's wrong, this is the time that you're expected to let them know so they can correct it. So that's the 1098-T. The next ones that we're going to talk about are all different forms of 1099s. And the first one you need to be aware of, and this is item number 4, is the 1099 DIV or 1099 INT. And those are the forms that you'll receive from your bank or from your brokerage account that will indicate the amount of dividends that you received or the amount of interest that you received from those various entities. If the amount of interest paid is less than $10, the bank is not required to send you a 1099 INT, but you are nevertheless responsible for reporting that interest as income. Also, you'll want to watch out for, if you have a brokerage account, oftentimes they will use a special statement of your account as the complete reporting of all the 1099s that relate to that brokerage account. 1099 INTs, 1099 DIVs, 1099Bs, 1099 OIDs, all the rest of them. So be sure to examine any statements that you receive from your broker that indicates that this is the important tax information. And I've already mentioned it, so let's go back to it. This would be number 5, I believe, and the number I hope I haven't gotten out of order. That's the 1099B, and it will say for broker or barter accounts. And this is the report that indicates the raw profit that you made from that brokerage account. Or if you have a barter arrangement with a person, they're required to send a 1099B for that barter income. Now be careful with those, because those are reports of information for which there may be some modification before you come up with your adjusted gross income for them, simply because the basis of stocks and bonds or other expenses that relate to a barter may make that amount different. Then we come on down to one that's less common, the 1099-C, which is the report of forgiven debt. So if you negotiate a reduction in your credit balance with a credit card company, they are going to report the difference in what you paid and what you owed as income, and that will be reported to you on a 1099-C. You want to be aware that if you are insolvent or have filed bankruptcy, and that's the reason for the reduction for the 1099-C, then there are adjustments that you may be eligible for that we'll need to take into account. And then finally we have the 1099 MISC, which is the report of miscellaneous income for non-employees, including, there's also a number of other things that will be reported, but unless you're a renter, you might receive a 1099 MISC for your rent, but most people are going to receive it as a non-employee income, and if that's the box, it's box 7 on that form. If you receive a report of income for that, you are required to file a Schedule C to answer that report. And then the expenses that you may be able to use to reduce the amount of income that's reported to you is important for you to have. And so if you receive a 1099 MISC, that should trigger the search for additional information from your own personal records over the year. I believe that's the 8. It's the 8 on my notes, so that's what we're going to do. You want to watch out for these. There are other forms. I've mentioned a few others that you might get. Be careful of, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call. So that's it for today. Tomorrow is day number 9, and we'll have some more information to share at that time.